Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by my co-host, Mr. Dan Flan of the Midwest Racing Connection. Hello, Daniel.
I feel like I just saw you a few days ago.
I know, right? We've seen more of each other, I think, just in the past week or 4 or 5 days than we have all year. It's been a
Yes.
good time. By the way, thanks real quickly for opening up the Dolphin for fun and frivolity and festivities, for that matter. Always appreciated.
Yeah, I couldn't believe we had 8 people in there Saturday night. So it's a little crowded, but it was warm.
I know, and we thought we were going to be able to do like a fun live podcast out there, but that didn't really come together. It was a bit congested and perhaps a little too, um, how do I say this? There was too much alcohol involved. We'll just put it that way. It was not appropriate to do that, but that's all right. Instead, we've lined up a bunch of really great guests that are going to be coming on here over the course of the next several weeks. And the first of which is the series director for the Midwest Truck Series. Please welcome Mr. Drew Krcma. Hey, Drew.
Hey, how's it going? You said
It's
we were all in the
going.
same place last week, but I didn't get to see many people being in the tower the whole weekend.
I was going to say, you worked a pile during Oktoberfest. You always do. You wear multiple hats. But obviously, being the series director with the Midwest Truck Series, that kind of took a big priority for you too.
Yeah, mainly just on Saturday. I got there noon on Wednesday, and then I was figuring it was about 13 hours in the tower Friday between Friday, Saturday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Get up to the tower about 9:25 right after the drivers' meeting, and don't leave till the last checker flag, and go do a round through the pits quick, and then it's out to payout. So I think we left probably about midnight every night of fast, and then right back in the morning.
Yikes. Yeah, those are some long hours. I don't think the average fan actually appreciates how many hours the folks who put on Oktoberfest race weekend, all the different series, people who work, the folks at the racetrack, safety officials. I mean, there is a plethora of manpower hours that go into putting that whole thing on. So big tip of the cap to everybody involved, really. And you've been involved in a lot of different roles over the years in different series, different facets. So you've just been a real main staple in racing for
Yeah,
a long
and it really
time.
goes back to, really back to the 90s, is where it all began for me with my dad flagging. I grew up at the track. A lot of people outside of the racetrack go, how did you get into that? And it was like probably the same, a lot of people just kind of born into it. I don't know any other way. My first memories of the racetrack were, from the time I was 3, 4, 5 years old. And I'm actually kind of jealous because, you think I grew up walking up the hill and seeing lacrosse, but I don't remember that first time that I saw it. Where there's a lot of people that, if they've never been to lacrosse, they walk up and it's pretty big. And it's just, that was my place for, really all through the 90s. That's just where we spent every Saturday night.
I know I used to see because Bruce Noodleman and I used to do a race show every week out at La Crosse Fairground Speedway. And I can remember seeing you with your own little set of flags, copying what your dad Lefty was doing up in the flag stand. You must remember doing that.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. So, like, a lot of people, I have a pretty outgoing personality, especially at the racetrack. Pretty confident, and that really started back when I was a kid. I remember, if you know where the lights are down towards turn one, it's like halfway down, like the Thunderstock track or the Hobby Stock, whatever it's called now. I remember standing there because I felt like where my dad was, they couldn't see him because realistically, like it's not in a good location for that quarter mile. So I moved down because I felt that they could see me better, and I was probably like 6, 7, 8 years old, thinking that all the race car drivers were like watching me with the set of flags that my grandma hand sewed. We always had metal ones because my dad liked the metal poles instead of the wooden ones. So yeah, so from an early age, down in the flags or down in the front stretch, announcing. I remember announcing qualifying because Kieran Clark was running late, and so I grabbed the microphone and I knew who all these drivers were. Probably didn't know any of the sponsors or anything like that, but jumped on the microphone and ran scoreboard, probably 7, 8 years old. So yeah, so to really just have grown up from the officiating side, not from the racer side.
Which actually brings me to my next question. Now, you were even involved over at the go-kart track. Did you ever race?
So if we back up even further, my first like officiating job was at the go-kart track in Westby when I was like 9 or 10 years old. My dad let me flag the rookies because I was a rookie flag man. I got to flag the rookie go-karts. And then we moved away in 99, and then probably 2002, 2003, I want to say we started racing go-karts down at Westby. So we drive the 3 hours down. And then I turned 16 and we weren't very good. Racing wasn't as fun. So that ended that stint. And then fast forward to probably 2016, started racing go-karts again, then over at Cooley right outside La Crosse. And again, not very good. I flipped a go-kart 4 times in 3 years and didn't get hurt any of the times. And so after that fourth time, I was like, you know what, like this probably just isn't for me. And I haven't raced since.
That's
Did you
wild.
ever did you ever run on the big track or just the kart track?
I've only ran go-karts,
Okay.
yeah, on the go-kart track. I tested one of the, I think it was one of the Thurks Hornet cars one night out at La Crosse on a Wednesday night, but never raced anything officially over at the big track.
Did you ever want to?
No, like that's the weird thing. Like I've always wanted the officiating side. I've just never really had the desire. Go-karting was fun, but it takes a lot of money. It doesn't matter the level of anything. And so it's just one of those things that like I said, I grew up on the officiating side, the promoting side, the marketing side of it. And that's just really what I've been drawn to. I took a few years off from lacrosse and helped Mike Carlson from the crew side. But again, I was the guy that could put the window net up, pull the jack stands out, back them up, run the GoPros. You don't want me touching the car in any shape or form with something that could fall off. And I knew that. And I'm very self-aware of that. But it was fun to see the from the crew side. That way, when we design schedules, when we go to promote the event, I could see it from the racer side. What does the crew go through? How long do they wait in line? Things like that. That from the officiating side we never see because we're always the first ones there. We have our own line that we can skip the entire line. So just little things that really helped in the overall from the promoting side of it.
Nice. So again, you've had roles pretty much in every facet. Which role do you enjoy the most?
I've been race directing since 2012. Since I went to the Dells in 2012. I really enjoy flagging. There's something about being down there on the racetrack with them. You really get to feel and hear how fast they're going, especially super lates. I say the best probably memory flagging is just I got to flag quite a few of the trickle 99s, and so those first segments, you got the entire field. They come ripping by you. That's super cool. The flag stand now is a little bit higher, but places like Jefferson, Rockford, you're literally standing right on the wall. And so there's a little bit of that danger factor that I think the racer, the adrenaline of that, that they feel that it feels like you could just reach down and touch a car going by at 100 miles an hour. It's a pretty cool feeling.
Do you feel like that might also be a way to stay connected to your dad? Why you love that so much?
Yeah, I told Austin Wells this weekend. There was part of me that was sad to see the old flag stand go at La Crosse because that was where my dad was. I got to flag in that flag stand. I actually have one of his checkered flags right behind me, and so it was like that connection piece. Still get to seeing that, but I'm kind of a control freak, and so being able to be the race director up in the tower is ultimately like where I want to be. But that doesn't mean like flagging. I think is the coolest job at the racetrack.
Yeah. How old were you when your dad passed?
18. And so if we kind of if and it's all like God has crazy ways of working. So 1999, so he flagged all the way up to Oktoberfest of 99, and we moved up to Medford at that time, and we actually stepped away from short track racing. Watched NASCAR, but never really went to any short tracks. I think we came back for maybe an Oktoberfest, came back for the 2002 ASA race at La Crosse, but just as a spectator, just as a fan. And then the spring summer of 2006, I don't know how it happened, but my dad got a job at Marshfield. being a corner worker. And so again, out of the blue, 6 years later, and basically said like, hey, I was 17 at the time. Like, hey, my kid can come work as well if you want. And so then I went and we were doing that every Saturday, and I got to do staging. And so that was a time of like Matt, Jay Vandergeest was racing. The Menards were up there. And so it was Ben Pettis was there. And so it was a solid crew of like good late model guys up there. And that was the summer that then he passed away. And so it was like that was the moment that got me back into racing, because before, like, I didn't really have any desire to officiate, didn't really have, we weren't near a racetrack. And so then that was really the first, so summer of 2006 was the first kind of like my first year back at the racetrack. And then midsummer is when he passed away. And it was that instantly became home. And so then the next year is actually when I moved back to La Crosse and joined the safety crew. One of our friends, Rocky Holmeyer, was running the safety crew at that time, and I knew him from the time I was 6, 7 years old again, when we lived around here. And so it got me back into the racetrack, and then have just really worked my way up the ranks since that 2006 to 2007 time.
That's so crazy. God winks are a big part of everybody's life, I think, with how your journey goes. You know, you can look back and that old saying about how, um, once you start to basically, looking for God or asking him for help, you see his hand in everything, right?
Yeah, and that 2006 was the year that Steve Carlson, I think, was running for Tim, and they went up to the fall shootout that summer, and Mikey was there, and that was the first time like we grew up together. We were in kindergarten together. My mom tells a story that the teacher was glad that she knew we were both in racing, because we would draw race cars and then go ask her how to spell Budweiser and Miller, because we wanted to put sponsors on the race cars, because that's what we knew. Like, we had no idea what any of it was, but we just knew, with his dad coming from the Super Lights as well. And so that was the first time since I had moved in 99 that I had seen him. And it was just like that moment of like, at the fall, I knew I was going back to or thinking about moving back to La Crosse. And it was like that moment of like, hey, here's an old racetrack connection for you. So that like when you go back, you have somebody back home, and that's what La Crosse had always been to me. And so it was like just everything around the racetrack just felt like home, where everything else could be kind of pushed to the side. And that racetrack family is truly like none other. And it just really set the foundation of where I'm at today.
How did you transition from officiating or being part of the safety crew weekly to being part of the truck series?
So I was heavily involved in Tundra since the 2012 season, since I started working at the Dells, and they became a support series for Tundra, really 2014, 2015. So I got to meet John Wood, got to see what they were building there. And he had kept asking me like, hey, we'd love help. I just, yeah, like I'll do it. And just never really did it. Would help racetrack the races that they were at. And then honestly, like so then 2018 came, and that summer or that fall, April, actually got a divorce. And so then 2 weeks later is our first race at Madison. And I'm like, hey, I got nothing but time now. Like this is all I got, is the racetrack world. And so that was really the catalyst of I'm all in on the truck series. And so I think, again, you can see what we've been able to build since really that time. And we had a really good tech staff come on board 2017. And so the foundation started to be laid for that series, and they went all in on the tech side. I went all in on the promotion side and took over Facebook, the website, the promotion around the series, that 2018 time. And it's truly my baby, with what we've been able to grow in the last 6 years, and watching the evolution of the truck series, watching it go from, I look at some of the truck counts of 12, 13, 14 to now we're not happy if we have less than 20. We just had 25 at lacrosse, which beats the previous record of 23, which is last year, which beat the previous record of 21 the year before and 20 the year before that. So every year we've been able to grow our average truck count, and it's just fun. I've taken when I lived in Milwaukee, when I went to school there, we worked for the Milwaukee Admirals minor league hockey team. And so I've taken that approach with the truck series of we're a minor league, like we know who we are. And we are a ground to be able to turn some of these names into household names through the series. That way, when they move up to late models or super lates, whatever it may be, people already know them. They're already winners. And so that transition becomes easier for them, even for sponsorship or fans or t-shirt sales, because people actually know who they are.
That's what I really enjoy about the truck series now is the Midwest Truck Series is like NASCAR's trucks were when they started. You've got a mix of veterans and you've got a mix of young kids coming up, and everybody sure seems to get along really well.
If we can't have fun, like what are we doing there? And that's I've taken, I hear a lot of like what Trackhouse is doing with NASCAR, and they have the DJ behind the haulers, and they're having a good time there, and that's what I want us to be. If you walk by us and most of the races, we're playing music in the trailer. There's somebody always there. John Wood's down to have a beer with you afterwards, and that's if we can't have fun in short track racing, then why do it? There's plenty of other things that we can do because we're not in it for the money. The racers aren't in it for the money. We're not in it for the money. And so let's have a good time while doing it. Yes, there's going to be stress. Yes, there's going to be things that happen. And like I tell the racers, like guys, this is short track racing. Like fenders are going to get bent, feelings are going to get hurt. If you don't want any of that, there's a great vintage series that they don't want any of that. They want to drive around and show off the cars and race and have a good time, but don't touch each other. Like if that's the racing you're looking for, like go build a vintage car. We're short track racing, and that's what it's about. That's what the sport was built on. But let's respect each other. That way, afterwards, we can go have a beer with each other. We may not agree with each other, but we can at least respect each other, and then come back the following week or hopefully in 2 weeks, not the next week.
I got to ask you another potentially difficult question, awkward question, putting you on the spot. Yay, me. Um, there was kind of split opinion on Ty Majeski running the truck series race at Oktoberfest. I've heard a lot of people say, what is he doing running this amateur race? He has no business running this. And on one hand, it could be said, it's the same as, Kyle Busch coming back to run in the super lates, but Ty's already coming back to run super late. So then if he's running the trucks, is it indeed a diss for him to be able to enter into the race, or should it be looked at as a good thing? How did you feel about that?
So yeah, I mean that's asked to us, right? And it puts a spotlight on us. So from us on the series standpoint, it's fun when guys like that come back. It brings some name recognition to the series. Two, I think it sets the bar of where you should be. If you look at a year ago, he came through the field pretty easily. Granted, it was 4 new tires. He knows that track. This year wasn't as easy for him. Tire advantage wasn't there. Some of these guys can go toe to toe with him. You look at a guy, Chester Ace was not that far off of him in practice. And the other thing is like, I look at it and go, he should be good. Like he is the one guy in that field that gets paid to do this for a living. And so if he comes and is finishing 10th, what does that say about him? What does it say about a Toby truck? What does it say about the competition? The competition can be there, but I think on an equal playing field, again, he had a little bit more of a tire advantage. It's only the third time that truck raced. And two, he's going to drive that truck like nobody else will drive that truck because, again, he's the one guy that gets paid to do this for a living, and has had success in it. And so if you can beat him or you can run close with him, I think that's a good thing, and it just sets everybody where should we be. And again, Chester A should feel pretty good about their Oktoberfest, their lacrosse setup. Again, we don't have SMT data, but my guess is corner speed's way different, throttle pickup's way different, braking's way different, from a guy of that caliber that, again, probably has the most laps around lacrosse between testing and racing weekly there for a few years, than anybody else in the field. So I don't look at it negative. Now, if it was every week, we might say, hey, buddy, like,
Yeah.
maybe time to find something else to do. But for one-offs, I have no problem with it. I would love to see some of these guys when we go to a track from a competitive, like when we're with ASA Stars, some of those guys that may be just looking for some more track time that aren't from around here, a truck would be a great opportunity for them, again, just to get more laps. And let's face it, at the end of the day, that the Toby truck's there for one reason, and it's supposed to be fast. That they're going to put all their energy into making sure that truck is right. Because if Ty can't win in it, it's going to be hard to sell trucks. And so I think if everybody just kind of takes that approach with it, and again, if you can beat him now, it's 2 in a row. Now that I can tell you, if he joins next year and if somebody beats him, that win is going to feel much more special than if he wasn't in the field.
I agree wholeheartedly, but I didn't want to be the one to say it because I'm married to the crew chief. So, um, it is full disclosure though, too, to say, you do some media work for Ty in the truck series, the NASCAR truck series, right?
Yeah, and it's and again, I think one thing that my dad taught me is that it doesn't matter on the racetrack who they are; they're just a number. If you listen to the scanner, when him and Jacob touched in turn one, I came across and was like, "That's not how we race here." Like, it doesn't matter who it is. Now, if that move is done in a super late, I'm probably letting it go because, again, there's different ways that you race different divisions, and the truck series is just we're not about just going in there and moving somebody up. Now, again, differences of opinion, but in the moment, I thought I saw what I saw. But it doesn't matter who it is. I've put him to the back. I put Mike Carlson to the back and use him at my wedding. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. If you don't want me to make a call, don't put me in a position to make a call, because 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to go against you, because I don't want that. My integrity is all I have. And so from the race directing position, as soon as somebody thinks that I have favorites, now the flip side of that is I can also make your life very difficult. I think that's things that some racers need to realize, that if there's a chance to make a call and we have issues, I may see that a little bit differently than if we have a good relationship. And it's the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. But I can tell you, when you're the guy complaining every week, when you're the guy questioning every single call, you're not making many friends, not only on the racetrack, but in the tower. And I think you'd rather have the tower people on your side, than against you.
I would agree with that. So, with regard though to the media thing, that's just another thing that you're doing. You are, like a lot of people try to do with their investments. You are so diversified, Drew, with everything that you do. I mean, you travel to do media for Ty. You're doing the Midwest Truck Series. I think you're also helping with other media for other different entities as well, too. So you've got your fingers into a lot of different things. That's got to be kind of a hectic life.
Yeah, luckily I have a good team. We've been able to Epic. We have one full-time employee. My wife helps me. And the stuff for Ty is, like, now with modern technology, we don't have to go to the track as much. When they're companion with NASCAR, with the Cup Series, they have the spotter chat. I have access to the team's Getty account, so that way I can pull images right from Getty, if they're uploaded in time. And so a lot of times what we can do is right from the couch. We don't have to travel. I think I've only been to 4 races maybe, actually at the track. And so modern technology is awesome. And so when you have that big a following, it was just a random, like, after right around Daytona, I was like, hey, do you need some help? Because we could see what the potential was. So when you're looking at sponsor activation, you need to have an audience, an engaged audience. And so it's just kind of taken off and evolved from there. Don't want to say it's not a ton of work. I'd love to be able to do more. Just have to get the pieces to align, to be able to make it happen, while not giving up what we've built with the full-time marketing gig. But then I help Jerry Obby a little bit with some of his poster stuff. We help Toma, with their social posting. And then we'll see where it goes. I don't want to do too many drivers and too many tracks because it's not repeatable. If I have 4 drivers and they're all racing that weekend, I have to make 4 different graphics that all look different. Otherwise, people know. And so I'm happy with where I'm at. Maybe eventually we'll look at a branding company, some sort of personal brand company that ideally we would take some kid from a bandolero and really start teaching them at a young age how to be marketable, how to have a personality, how to have voice. I'm not only in social, but at the racetrack. But we're a ways away from that right now, but that's kind of the long-term plan.
Interesting. So do you see yourself staying involved with the Midwest Truck Series for a long time, or is this something that you just really want to build up and then kind of hand off to let them find someone else to try to fill your
I
shoes?
think we'll always be involved in some shape or form, depending on where my career goes. We'll see. I do have some goals in the racetrack world that I would love, but at the end of the day, the truck series, like I said, is my baby. It's what we've grown. Now I could see John's not getting any younger, and so we've set things up to who knows whenever that time is, maybe some sort of succession plan there, and then develop the next person while still being involved. We have a really good crew there, and I want to say we've almost kind of become the breeding ground of not just racers, but I look at Ryan Noodleman. He started being like he was. We took him as a photographer 3 or 4 years ago when he was probably what 12, 13.
Hmm.
And it allowed him to have responsibilities at the track that Bruce could work through and teach him, okay, if you're working for a series, here's what the expectations are on a much lower expectation level. That if something's not done, it's okay. Like we'll be fine. We're just the support series. But I look at it from an announcer standpoint, from an officiating standpoint, from the next series director. Alexander Gilhard, he became our like full-time flagman at like 17. And I saw his ability, and it gave him the launch pad to be able to, have a series to tie into. And I absolutely love kind of seeing the next generation of not just racers, but promoters, officiate like officials, marketing, media, where we have a really good thing going that we can allow people that room to grow before they go up to a super late level, before they go wherever it is that they may go.
And you definitely are qualified to spot that talent, given how many different roles you have played. We've often joked around about how Greg McCarnes had started, dumping garbage cans, at the racetrack, basically. And now he's gone on to have tremendous success as well, too. You're kind of in that same vein, really, Drew. You really are.
Yeah, and that's it. It's a good and a bad thing because it makes it really hard to teach. Um, I I tell people if they want to get involved, like you just have to come. Like you have to come hang out and we'll be able to find something for you. I don't have any roles because again, we have a team that we can fill all the holes if we need to, or we can do the show with 3 people. It makes it a lot easier when we have 12 people, but we can scale it back if we need to. Um, and so when we look at race directors, there's people that would come into the tower and it's just so easy for me and I get so frustrated, but I don't know how to teach that. We start going through lineups and there's no numbers. I'm sure you're similar. Like I can scan a field and I can tell you 3 cars in a row without ever seeing the number because I know what the truck looks like. I know what the car looks like. And you just start to get a sense of the flow. And I'm super blessed that I grew up around lacrosse and I had just posted right the other day. I don't know if you'd seen it. Like you just get used to how to run a show and I grew up around Chuck Deary, Greg McCarnes, Jeff Garbers, that they run a really tight ship from an efficiency standpoint. I didn't grow up on a down south dirt track where they don't start until 9:30 or 10 o'clock. That stuff would
Or
never
take an
happen here.
intermission. I hate
Yeah.
intermission.
Now, I don't mind intermission just simply from a officiating standpoint. It gives us the time to just like breathe, or get lineups down. But a place like Fast, you can't do that. But yeah, you just again, it's what I grew up doing, and so being able to have like the it factor, a kid like Alexander, like I could see that right away in him. He just got it. I didn't have to teach the basics of racing. We can now evolve into the details to be able to exactly how I want a show to be ran. And so those that didn't grow up in that have a little bit harder time. Now there's more than one way to skin a cat. I do believe my way is the best way. I'm joking, but and so you just get to know how to do it. And so the more that people come around us, the more that they just kind of figure it out and see how we do it. But I can't train somebody how to be a race director. You just have to do it.
Yeah. And for the record, Drew does not skin cats at any time. No cats were harmed at all
No,
during the season. So we
I
know.
suppose, yeah. Have to say that these days.
Right? Oh my goodness. So what's next for you? I mean, what's your next big conquest that you're looking at here?
I don't know. There's chit chatter around the super late stuff. I don't know. It's an interesting time for that. It would take I think I'm ready for it, but right now, again, we have a really good thing going with the trucks. We have a really good thing going with our marketing company. We're involved with some really great, burn boot camps. And this is where like racing is everything, right? Like Sonia Pennell is like my connection into the burn boot camps. I got the job at Dean Satellite because I knew of her through racing. So I just reached out to her on Facebook when I graduated and said, "Hey, you looking for a marketing person?" And I got that connection into Dean Satellite. And then when that time, at the same time around the divorce, kind of lost that full-time job and then basically was handed like 3 or 4 burn boot camps through just word of mouth. So without her, and none of that would have happened without the racetrack community. And so now we work with some really good franchise partners, Wendy Venturini being one of them. So she owns 3. So it's fun to have that connection from the racetrack side of things. And like Chris Rice has gone to her burn boot camps and she's actually lost some of her people to the colleague team. And so just being able to talk to other people about racetrack stuff. We work with Ronaldo Wynn, who was a former Jacksonville Jaguars NFL player and then actually went to work at Coach Gibbs's his ministry. And so he was around the Coach Gibbs and the racetrack stuff. And so there always seems to be some racetrack connection no matter where we're at. And I just love that.
I think whatever you put out, you manifest into your life, really, right? I mean, be who you
Yeah.
are and you'll attract that same type of person. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, some have asked about NASCAR. I think those days are gone. I had the opportunity a while ago, but to start off in NASCAR, like you're starting entry level. And so it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of weekends. If I was involved in NASCAR, I think it would be from the PR side, from a team. I would prefer that versus the actual officiating side. Now, don't get me wrong. I would love to go to a tower sometime, but I'm probably way. I don't know if I'm NASCAR, if I'm cut out for NASCAR. I'm not exactly the most political type, especially at the racetrack. I know what I see. I know what I want. I know how I want it done. Don't want necessarily a committee to make decisions. And so I can see some super late model stuff. Some, again, we'll see where life takes us. I would love to racetrack the snowball derby sometime. That's probably like a bucket list, race directing. But then again, I help with fest that outside of lacrosse is a big deal, which it is. But like, again, I race directed every race other than the Midwest Tour stuff this weekend. Helped all the series. And so I'm in the tower for everything. But again, it doesn't feel like a big deal because I'm not traveling. It's 8 minutes from my house. It's lacrosse, it's home. So it's not, I haven't ever taken my radios on a airplane and gone and race directed somewhere. So I think that'd probably be a goal someday.
That would be cool. That would be cool. You mentioned the snowball derby. Have you been to that race?
I've never been. Never been to the snowball derby. It's always in a really bad time for me. Just being kind of off season, trying to just like get away from the racetrack a little bit. And now we got married that weekend last year. So now we could just say, hey, like we're gonna go honeymoon down in Pensacola. There's a beach. I'll just tell her we're going to the beach. And it's too bad because I had a client down there. One of my burn boot camps was right in Pensacola. So we could have made it work and had a write-off trip and all that, but just never made it work. Someday though, it's what I always say. But now this year we might go to PRI, which is the following weekend. So it's like it's hard to do snowball and then PRI.
Yeah, tell me about it. I don't see my husband a whole lot. That's part of the reason I go to Florida for those races, so we can actually see each other and not forget what one another look like.
Yeah, so I love again. We'll probably get there someday. Again, either from the officiating side or more than likely probably be from the PR side though, unless they call me. The people that run it probably can find a way to get my number if they want. So if they're ever looking for somebody, they'll figure out how to get a hold of me.
Well, there you go. We just threw it out there. Tim Bryant, you heard it. If you need some help, Drew Kreibich's your guy. Dan, did you have something? You look like you were about ready to say something.
No, no, I didn't. I'm just enjoying listening.
I know,
I didn't
Drew.
know that much about Drew.
Drew, you are a colorful character. I think I said that to you before we had you on, that you have just really had an extraordinary path in your career. I mean, again, I remember you as a kid, and I do remember you moving down further. And I thought to myself too, like that kid's pretty smart because he knows that the short track will see them more there.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I was a kid though that like, grew up in the open trailer time. So before I'd go up to the racetrack, we lived right off M, right out there in Berry Mills. So I remember just going and sitting in the ditch over there, just waiting for race cars to go by and seeing who was going, and it was just this sport has been all that I've known. And again, from the officiating side, my dad didn't teach me how to build race cars. He taught me how to build computers. So we can build computers, we can know how to officiate, we know how to put on a good race. And so just being able to be a part of every aspect, I think that's one thing that I try to hold on to is that side of the fan, that side of being able to again have a relationship with the racer, understand where they're coming from, but at the end of the day, seeing it from the promoter side as well. That it's not, some of the worst officials are former racers, simply because they only see it through the racer's lens. When you have to be able to take both sides. And so starting on the bottom of like, and it's bad to say the bottom, but like starting on the safety crew where I didn't have any of the like kind of any of that authority and working on gaining that respect. I remember being a 17, 18-year-old kid, maybe 19, and I made a call at Jefferson against a pretty high, pretty well-known name, that it was a call that I thought I made correctly. And I don't think he'll mind, but uh, I'm blanking on his name. Greg Falk from the Big 8 series overrode my call, and I came back and said it again, and he overrode my call again, and I said it one more time on the radio, what I thought pretty confidently happened. And I remember he walked over, grabbed my headset out of my holster, or my radio out of my holster, took my headset off, walked up and threw it against the fence and just kept walking. I was like, okay. I now understand the hierarchy of short track racing. That if the series co-owner or promoter makes this call, that's the call that's made. And similar situation at lacrosse sometimes, and one of them was against Emily, and it was again I thought I saw what I saw. I made it very well known, and Toby came over and asked me. I was standing in 3 and 4. I was like, listen, like I made the call, and it got overruled, and it was like, okay, like I now know the hierarchy of this structure. So how do I work my way up this hierarchy so that way if I make a call, but again, I was 18, 19, 20 years old at the time, and so I just had to kind of had to learn that the hard way. That at times I may not know what I saw, or somebody saw it better and they had a better angle, they saw something different. But again, that comes from, I was the same way when I was 8 years old, and I thought the Thunderstock guys were paying attention to me. And so it's been a fun journey. And I've had to mellow out a little bit throughout the years. Things like TV and replay help me, because I can take a moment to just breathe. And at Fast, it was nice to be able to radio down to the TV booth and say, hey, can you bring that? Did you guys get something before I have to make a call right away? Where we can talk as an officiating crew. We can look at the replay instead of just being so quick to make a call.
Well, even before the replay, though, I mean, the fact that you have learned life lessons in humility, I think that's actually applicable to everything in life. I think if everybody had a little more humility about what they're doing, saying, um, posting, I think the world would be a lot better if we all just kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, and control goes a long way. Like you may not always agree with it, but there's a reason usually for something. And so again, I had to learn it at a younger age. Some of it may still be there. I've just worked my way up the chain that now I'm not challenged as much. But it was very, very valuable at the time for me. And it also, I think, allowed me to gain a respect with the racers, gain a respect. That's one thing, like you'll see I'm down in the pits after the races all the time. And I want to be down there. I want to get to know people. I'll walk into trailers. If I don't like something, I'll walk right into a trailer. We had a driver at Fast that did something I didn't like in practice, and as soon as that session was done, I was beelining right to the trailer. That way I could just handle it. And at the end of the day, we might have a little conflict there, but we'll drink a beer later. We'll joke about it. But that's the relationship I want to have. It's not one I'm not approachable. Typically, you will always, after the race, I will always do a lap through the pits. I'll always be visible in some way, shape, or form through messenger, phone, email, whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, they have to like us. And as a promoter, that race car doesn't cost any more if it just sits on jack stands. And so they have to like and want, no different than us wanting to go to the track to officiate. They have to want to bring their race car, race truck to the racetrack. And if they don't like us, if they like, eventually they're just going to sit on jack stands, or they're going to sell them and they'll go buy a boat or go do something else. But if they like us and we like to have a good time, and they know that no matter what happens, we can at least talk about it. We can at least agree to disagree, but that we both want each other there. It's what will help the series grow versus the opposite way of, my way or the highway. And that approach worked in the 90s when there was cars. Today, it's not saying we're begging racers to come, but again, they have to want to be there just as much as we want to be there.
I agree wholeheartedly. Drew, you are an amazing guy. I am so glad that you were able to be our guest on the podcast. And I just look forward to watching your trajectory. I don't think you are done soaring. I think you're going to get even higher with your journey in racing. And it's been a good one. I think it'll eventually make a good book someday.
Maybe. I appreciate you guys and what you guys do also for short track racing, and getting to hear some of the stories from other people. It's been fun to listen to some of the other guests, and so hopefully mine gets added to that, and I look forward to the ones to come.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Drew Krcma. He is your series director with the Midwest Truck Series, and PR extraordinaire. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.